Why is there no shame in breaking your arm, but so much shame in having depression? A few years ago, I was told that one of my family members was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was shocked. I never heard of bipolar disorder, and I'd never even heard of a mental illness. My parents tried to explain to me how bipolar disorder affected my family member. They said, for a stretch of time, she'd be unmotivated and stay in bed all day. And then she would switch and act in an almost manic fashion, staying up all night buying everything on the shopping channel. But that definition didn't satisfy me. For years, I researched and asked people what they knew about mental illnesses as I was trying to learn how I could help my aunt. I also wanted to learn how I could approach her, as it was never openly discussed by her or anyone in our family. I wanted to understand what she was going through. I wanted to be able to help her. I wanted to help people in similar situations as her. Mental illness is defined as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities to cope with normal life stresses and to work productively and fruitfully is no longer there. Mental illnesses have been around as long as humanity has. It may not have been defined, however, it has always been present. It is a part of humanity. In ancient times, people believed that if you had a mental illness, it was because you were possessed by an evil spirit. They treated the illnesses with amulets and charms that supposedly had magical powers. At the end of the 13th century, if you had a mental illness, you were considered a wild beast and had to be locked up in an insane asylum until you were healthy again. They believed that they were physically incapable and their insanity had nothing to do with their brains. People also started to become more compassionate in mental illnesses as the idea of change became more open. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, lobotomy and shock therapy were the two main cures for mental illnesses. During a lobotomy, the doctor would perform surgery on the patient's brain and remove the frontal lobes. This was horrible because some of the side effects were brain damage, loss of personality, childlike behaviors, and even seizures. Over the course of history, people used to believe, and some still do, that people with mental illnesses are irrelevant and should be locked up. Times have changed, and we have grown so much from ignorance to increased awareness. Mental illness is considered taboo to many people. There is a stigma that comes with having a mental illness, and that is one of the main reasons why people go without help, especially in Indonesia, where 14 million people suffer with a mental illness. In Bali, people believe that if you have a mental illness, you should be chained up as if you are in prison, which is not fair because one is born with a mental illness and cannot decide whether they have it or not. There is very limited access to mental health care in Bali. There are very few places you can go to get help, and the information is very limited. When I started researching mental care, I wanted to be able to fix the whole system, but I knew that was unrealistic. With the urge to help people like my family member, I started volunteering at the Sarihati School, which is a place where children and adults can go and learn for free. It is an amazing community and a great addition to the limited care in Bali. Before going to the Sarihati School, I had never been around anyone with a severe mental illness. Therefore, I didn't know much of what to expect. As I was walking into the classroom to greet the children, I saw an older man looking through flowery bars, noticing everything. I kept walking with a weird and nervous feeling in my gut. As I walked through the doors, children came up and gave me hugs, pulled at me, and some were even spitting. It was very overwhelming and so much to take in at once. I felt that I was in over my head and I had put myself in a position that was very frightening. Right at that moment, a little girl came over to me, a girl with Down syndrome. She wrapped her arms around me and hugged me tightly. At that moment, I knew I had to carry on. She was so kind, and her hug changed my perception of how I was feeling. The children and adults listened and focused so well. Especially when the teacher would have the class do an activity, they would all do it and not talk very much, which I did not expect because I'd always been told that people with autism have short attention spans and don't focus very well, which can be true in some circumstances, but it was so interesting to compare what I had read and what I had learned to real-life experiences. Before starting my project, I was mad that people talk so easily about physical illnesses, but not about mental illnesses. My time working with the children has shown me that it can be difficult to be around people with severe mental illnesses, which meant that maybe that's one of the main reasons people don't like discussing mental illnesses. Even though it's a hard subject to discuss, I feel that people with mental illnesses should not be marginalized just because of who they are. Even though the mental illness label is put upon them, does not mean that's the only definition of them. That is just what society has been taught to believe. Over half of all children and adults with Down syndrome develop mental health issues during their lifetime. This is because they do not have the psychological strength to cope with situations such as a family going to university, a loss of a household pet, or an illness in a family member. All these ordinary events seem extraordinary to children and adults with Down syndrome. While I was playing with the children, my eyes were open to so many things I didn't even know existed. I never expected to learn as much as I did. I wanted to find a way to bring what I had learned to help our green school community. I thought that creating a booklet that explained different mental illnesses and how to maintain good mental health was the most effective way. I created the booklet with many tips, including how to help a friend who was unwell. Once the book was created, it led to printing and creating it. I held a farmer's market stand to hand out my booklet and to help people understand what mental illness is. My friends are now going to hand out some of the booklets, and if you receive one, you're more than welcome to keep one. At the farmer's market stand, we also had people doing Zentangles, which is a way to express yourself through art. We were explaining the benefits of essential oils and healthy eating, and had people write affirmations, which is a way to express yourself and to remind yourself. Mental illnesses are slowly starting to become more openly talked about. In an effort to raise awareness, Canada's largest telecommunications company created a campaign called Bell Let's Talk. On January 30th, Bell donates 5 cents for every call or text to the Canadian Mental Health Organization. Another program is NAMI, which is an American nonprofit organization that helps people with mental illnesses all around the world. These are just 2 of many organizations who are trying to help reduce stigma around mental illnesses, and for people to realize that these organizations benefit so many people can truly make an impact on how people's perception for caring for a community can change. In the future, I hope to bring these books back to places in Toronto and help the communities there. But for the moment, I hope to continue volunteering and sharing books around Bali. I'm so grateful for the many people who helped me throughout my Quest project. In particular, Sarah Peterson, all the Quest teachers, Tim Preble, my mom, and Ibu Sari and Ibu Menti, who gave me the opportunity to work with the amazing children. I'm different, not less, Dr. Temple Grandin.